this is my presentation on the Lotus 270E. It's a tri-fuel performance car designed by Lotus based on the Prestige S, which is their previous model, which runs on petrol fuel. This was now tri-fuel. I've now come up with a model, seeing as their aim is to produce a greener car for the environment. To answer the question of is it a practical move for a greener future for transport? This is the engine management system. It's basically a computer which is then sending signals to the engine in which they get to operate at different speeds and temperatures according to the balance of the three fuels that can actually be used to fuel it. Because the car is able to support any mixture of petrol, methanol or ethanol fuels, and seeing the fact that they are miscible fuels, they are able to mix together without separating. Basically here we then show the fuel bypasses the alcohol sensor, which then tells the alcohol content of the fuel, which then sends that down to the computer, which then instructs the engine what temperature it should be acting at in which to burn the fuel more effectively. Then, on emission coming out of the engine, we then have an oxygen sensor, which then calls back to the computer to make sure that the fuel has been burned correctly and that there isn't too much fuel in the exhaust after burning, and then it can then adjust that accordingly to make it more effective whilst driving. This is Lotus's proposed transfer from our current gasoline petrol cars, which are carbon busters, all the way down to the new methanol-based solutions. Basically, this is the transfer. We are going from gasoline, not petrol, should I say, through to bioethanol, which is what we get from the crops, which could actually be a problem with taking up more space and land use. But we then move through and then go on to taking bioethanol from waste rather than food, and then moving on to using synthetic methanol, which is a mixture of ethanol and methanol put together. Which will then move on to the methane cells of the future, which will be a more efficient way of fueling the cars. Basically, the reason why I'm using a methanol fuel against using a petrol fuel car is the fact that it can be it's broken down from CO2 in the atmosphere, which then can make it carbon neutral. And it's also able to burn much more efficiently than petrol currently does. We then see here that this is the Prestige actually being placed into the carbon and hydrogen cycles as they go through the atmospheres, just representing how the fact we can actually take the CO2 out of the atmosphere and break it down to then produce the methanol solution, to then fuel the car, which can then be emitted, which then recombine, go back into the atmosphere, and just contain the constant cycle. Now, the reason for this, the reason for using the good aspects of using methanol would be the fact that it can be placed directly into our fuel system. It's distributed as a liquid fuel, so it can distribute exactly the same as petrol existing does, and which makes it also cheaper for distribution companies. They don't need to change their technologies in which to be able to just pass it on to consumers. Consumers also then have the advantage of the fact that they don't need to do anything else. They fill up exactly as they do now in their current cars, which makes it a lot less stressful for them. The last thing you want to be able to try and do is be charging up your car when you used to just fill it up with fuel. People just don't get that quick enough, which is a help and a plus side for the methanol fuel base. Also, because the minimal changes, it's based entirely on the Prestige S, which, using exactly the same engine, is then able to keep the cost down, because you've only introduced the new computer system into the actual engine to control the burning process. and we're keeping it around the price of about £35,000. And move on. Oh god no. Oh my god. Okay. Let's rounding it up there. We've now come up with the fact that it is easier for the end user, and easier for the end user, basically less effort for anyone to actually convert it over, and at the end of the day, it's incorporating with the EU's new policies. In fact, in the EU's new policies, you see they've now gone and they want to lower carbon emissions, and so the point of using methanol would be a good start on just slightly changing, not making any drastic changes.